And if you wouldn't,
Here we go.
right? Thank you very much. All right, so we've officially begun, and we just said hello to one of our newest members, Alice. And I was wondering if we have any other new members who've been here. We haven't met as a big league since April, so please raise your hand if you've joined us since April. I'd like to acknowledge all of the new members. There are a few people I don't know that I know very. Um, Tina C, are you a new member by any chance? If you're available?
No, I've been a member for maybe a year and a half.
Oh, see, I knew I'd get busted out for not knowing everybody.
It's
Well,
okay.
well, I'm gonna welcome you anyway because I'm not sure we've met.
Well, thank you.
Although if I see you on camera, I'll probably be like, oh, of course I know that person.
Yeah, maybe. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome to everybody. And um so we'll just get right to our program. Uh, Greg Woodhams I texted him this morning and asked if he wanted me to do a little bio for him like we do when we have speakers from outside the league. And he said, no, just tell them that I'm on the education, the chair of the education committee and on a few other committees. But I can't do that, Greg. That you do way more than that. That would sell you short. So nice try. I'm not gonna do that. So Greg is not only the chair of the Voter Education Committee, but he is also on the board here at our local league, and he's also on the state board, which is a big deal because we like to have a voice on the state board from Kansas City, and he is the main one, and he's done tremendous work as well with the study groups the study projects that he has. I'm sorry, I'm getting completely distracted by the number of people who are knocking on the door to get into this meeting. So forgive me, I'm just going to let Judy Ann handle that and make that go away. But he also led the study administration committees. And so we're just wrapping that up, but that led to 2 rounds of new positions for us, which are being adopted by the state, we think, very soon. So he's done lots of valuable work and has a lot of information to share with us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Greg, and I'm going to spotlight you and let you share your screen.
Okay,
I'm sorry, one last thing.
Yes.
Please mute yourselves if you are not already muted, and please don't be offended if you forgot to mute because we will mute you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Oh, my screen is already shared. Well, no, it's not. I'm going to share my screen now. And Jim Calvert, do you see a screen that says voter education? Okay, perfect. This presentation should take about 30 minutes. So if you could hold your questions till I'm done, because I can't see your hands when you raise your hands. But it's about 30 minutes. So thank you for joining this presentation. And I'm sure that as the November election approaches, I'm not the only one who every now and then wakes up in the middle of the night, looking up at the ceiling and worrying about, and then I say, no, stop. I'm not going to worry. I'm going to wait till tomorrow, and I'm going to redirect those energies to the Voter Education Committee. And so today I'm going to talk about ways that you can channel all of that energy that you have, both positive and negative, into the Voter Education Committee. And you could call this presentation Voter Education Can Be Fun. And so here's all the different ways that you can be part of voter education. You can be part of voter education just as a regular League of Women Voters Kansas City members. You can, as a user of the voter education page. So that's, if there was one thing I wanted everybody to come away with, is that page is use the page. Number 2, as an attendee at our events. I'll talk about the importance of that later. And as a distributor of our materials. Another way that you can be part of voter education is by, like I said, sharing these materials with your friends, showing your friends the voter education page. That voter education page is a public page. There's nothing League of Women Voters top secret about it. It is meant to be shared with the public. And the standards that we use for that page, always bear in mind on everything that it's a public page. Invite your friends to voter education events. I know that Donna Hoke, when in 2022, she invited a number of her friends to some of the library presentations. And it was great to meet them. And then sharing those materials with your friends. And we'll talk about that later. You can be part of voter education even as a member of another league committee. We'll talk about that later, but one easy example here is Corinne, in her Get Out the Vote effort, does a great job of promoting or disseminating and informing people on everything that's out there on the voter education page. And lastly, another way you can be part of voter education is as a working member of the Voter Education Committee. This is a team-oriented group. We're also task-oriented. We form teams that focus on just one task, and that team will just run with the project and won't be distracted by other stuff. The whole committee meets every second Tuesday of each month at noon, and our working meetings are ad hoc. Okay, so to figure out how you might participate, let me go through our short history. We'll talk about what we've created since 2022. We're going to also talk today about our principles. We're going to talk about what we've learned. And we'll talk about what we're working on, and then we will close with talking about what we need. And again, I'm hoping that includes you. So first of all, a big shout out to our partners in the league. I'll start off with Melanie Bussey, who is my co-chair. And then two other members that have worked on both the 2022 and the 2024 library presentation, Elizabeth Darr and Jim Edson, as well as Melanie. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those. But there's lots of other voter education members that have been big contributors. And then here's some of the other committees that we partner with. Vote 411 social media, Pat Goodwin, the webmaster, the Observer Corps will give an example there. I've mentioned Corinne, Get Out the Vote, voter registration, and of course the election administration study members. I'll make a reference to that later. And then we'll talk more about partnership outside of the league and the Kansas City Election Board, UMKC, the Kansas City Art Institute, the Missouri Worker Center, the Kansas City Public Library, Revolución Educativa, and Missouri State University, and Pause to the Polls. All of those have been partners that have really advanced our efforts in voter education. Okay, so let's talk about what we've created. And this is just a summary here. I've mentioned the Kansas City Public Library ballot measures program, both in 2022 and 2024. We also did some ballot integrity media, and that was done with the Observer Corps. I'll show you where that is on the voter education page. There's the voter education page, the graphic novel, of course. We've also done an informed voting course materials for UMKC. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the voter education webpage. Again, if you took one thing away from this presentation, it's know where this page is and refer it to your friends. So I'm going to see if technology works. Okay, Jim Calvert, can you see the voter education? Okay, so there was a lot of work. Again, we didn't do this by ourselves. This Pat Goodwin and Katie Frankenbach did a whole lot of work collaborating with us in designing this. When this page on the left-hand side of the page has kind of like voter education today, current stuff. And as you can see here, we've got things on the ballot measures in August and November, We have on the ballot initiative process, we've got the e-version of our graphic novel, Missouri Voters Have a Superpower. And we also house a video that we are going to later update on just the whole ballot measures process. Over here on the right is stuff that is evergreen. And for example, here, this is part of what we developed for UMKC, but these are resources for college students. And this is a program. In fact, I'm just going to launch this right here. Let's see if I can. This is probably not going to launch because I'm launching something within something else. Anyway, and then this here is the ballot integrity video featuring Joe Holt, who is on this call. And again, this is something we did with the Observer Corps. And then so you get the idea there. And then down at the bottom, we've got flyers. So it's one of those places you can go for your flyers. Okay. So again, public page, go to it, share it with your friends. And again, here, what we are trying to do is give voters information they need to make an informed decision. As I mentioned, since it's a public page, we must adhere to standards of non-bias and nonpartisanship. We will talk about that later. All right, Missouri Voters Have a Superpower. This was something that we created after the 2022 presentation. And we were, I'm going to use the word postmortem. People don't like it when I use the word, but when we talked about, well, after our work is all done, Elizabeth Darr, who was on this call, said, well, you know something, I felt that when we were making that presentation, our audience seemed to be a whole lot like us. And we said, well, how can we reach people that are not like us? And one of the things we said was, well, let's reach out to an audience that is less verbal and more visual. And in other words, and also at the same time, people that don't live, work, and think like we do. So in case you haven't seen it, this is it. This is the cover. This is a graphic novel. This is available also on the voter education page, the e-version, okay? So let's close this. Let's go back here. So let's talk about this a little bit. And again, this is the second thing you should take away from this, is that nothing on the voter education team needs lots of people, and lots of people even outside of the voter education team. We got lots of help from the Kansas City Art Institute through an intern named Drake Goshener. He did fantastic work. We also got help from the Missouri Worker Center, which is associated with Missouri Jobs with Justice. They put us in contact with an interviewee, a protagonist, where somebody that talked about the minimum wage ballot measure, how that affected them. And of course, lots of hard work from the Voter Education Committee. We have distributed 425 hard copies, and in each of those of the conversation. In other words, we've been very conscious that when those things have gone out, they just don't go out there and sit in the corner of a pizza parlor like the Kansas City Gardener does. It is handed off, and there's a conversation that goes on. We'll talk about that later. And we've also distributed 213 e-versions, and those things are ongoing, and they're going out by themselves. We're not pushing it. They're just floating around the web. And those are unique views. The interest from outside of Kansas City is growing. We've been approached by groups outside of Kansas City saying, hey, we'd like to get some hard copies of the Missouri Voters Have a Superpower. And so we're working now with the League of Women Voters of Missouri, seeing if we can get some money for that. And again, this was done with a non-biased, nonpartisanship standard. And I can assure you that the non-biased, nonpartisanship standard was something we talked about a whole lot as we were creating it. Okay, a couple of things. This is the original Canvas sketch. Again, this is in the line of voter education can be fun. And we came up with the script, but these were the original Canva characters, and they were all white because Canva doesn't do a good job with people of color. And one of the characters was Lena. Another one was named Warren, and another was named Vera because I just was throwing stuff at the wall. I said League of Women Voters, LWV. Okay, but the committee did a great job. And I've got, and then those folks, they morphed into these characters, Jaden over here, Mia, and Zoe. Okay. Okay, so two stories. One of them was those names came up from somebody who actually fits this quality of not living, working, and like we do. It was a young mother who barely has time to be on our committees. But she said, she raised her hand and says, hey, I've got an idea how you can come up with some names. And so she came up with a great list. And she basically ran this process of us coming up with those names. And we came up with names that were certainly, let's say, an improvement. The other one was somebody else in a similar circumstance, somebody, a person one generation younger than us, very busy, kind of participated with us in 2022, said, hey, I'm just so bogged down on my work. I got to step off. And I said, hey, I love the way you work, and I just keep in touch with you and throw you stuff from time to time. And so she said, sure. Well, so as we were developing this, I said, hey, this is what's going on here. What do you think? And she was an extraordinarily detailed person, and she gave great feedback on the character visuals, on what their face should look like. In other words, as our artist was coming up with different ideas, what kind of clothes they wore, that was really valuable. Well, why am I telling you this? Is that we struggle to get people that work and that are busy to work on our projects. And my message here is, if you work and if you're busy, or even if you don't work, but if you're very busy, I will work with you for your involvement, because what we want to do is to get input from a broad group of people. Okay, so now let's talk about our principles. And principles, you start talking about principles, and you said, Greg, I thought you said this was going to be fun. Well, principles can be fun too. All right. So we'll talk about who we serve. We've talked about non-bias and nonpartisanship. I'll make it very clear, this is not advocacy. We'll talk about plain English. I've talked about reaching voters that don't think, work, and live like us. And we will also talk about respecting our voters' time. All right, so this is our job description. The committee informs, motivates, and educates. Motivate is a big word. That is part of what Missouri Voters Have a Superpower is about, motivating voters. And then I like to think that we have customers and clients and an audience, because we are out there to serve people. And our most important customers and clients are the league membership. That's 250 people that we need to do a good job serving. And then voters, and of course, the partner organizations. All right. So when we present our information, there's two parts of it. We need to give them the information that voters, the information that they need to make a decision. But another part is we need to give them information on how they can confidently exercise the right to vote. Remember when I talked about the people on the Election Administration Study Committee, one of the things that came out of that study was a need to get young voters to a higher level of confidence in order to exercise the right to vote. So I'm going to give you a story here. I was in Lori Elam's office. Lori is the Democratic director of the Kansas City Election Board. and we were having a conversation about something else, but she very passionately said to me, we're not here just to serve voters in this neighborhood or that neighborhood. We're here to serve all the voters. And that is certainly true for what we do in voter education. We are out there to serve all the voters. Okay. Anne, are you sending a signal to me about something? Okay, no.
No.
Okay, and then on advocacy, that again, that is the work of other committees. Our principals. This is another quote. When we were working on this, on the project with the library, Kansas City Public Library has a culture that is very strong on free speech and also non-biased. And he was across the table from us and he says, so you believe that you can present in this presentation the voter with the information that they need, including arguments from both proponents and opponents. And with that information, they will reach an informed decision. And we said, yes, but he put it so eloquently there. Okay, so I mentioned what Elizabeth said, but again, this is it. We need to reach voters that are more visual than us, busier than us, younger than us, and work longer hours than us. Okay, plain English. You know something? This is all about making sure that whatever you say is readily understandable. And so we make sure that our audience and whatever we write is understandable by high school seniors. And then the other thing is there actually is a group and a movement out there called Plain English, and we work with that. And then on respecting our voters' time, we'll talk about that when we talk about measuring. Okay, so here we go. What have we learned? Number one, make it a conversation. Here's an anecdote. I heard somebody from another organization talk when the project was done, and she said, you know, I just felt that we spent a lot of our time shouting into the wind. Well, the best way to avoid shouting into the wind is to make it a conversation. And Corinne does a great job of that at City Market with our materials. And she does a great job of making sure that whenever she's giving out some of our materials, she's making sure that it's a conversation. Well, why is making it a conversation important? Well, from that, we better understand what the voter needs. And I can tell you on the ballot measures issue, as we were, you know, we're going to face this again in 2025, but the understanding that voters have of the uniqueness of Missouri's citizen initiative process is much lower than we expected. This awareness that this is something we have in Missouri is unique was very low. Most voters, they say, oh, that petition thing. Okay. Another thing that we've learned is that teamwork creates culture. It gives you better ideas. It also avoids blind spots. I can think of a lot of times when, you know, something that I've written, it goes before the group and somebody says something or identifies something. And I said, I absolutely did not see that. Then the other thing is collaborating with other organizations and teams. It takes you to places you couldn't go alone. All right, a little bit more on collaboration. It really does take, and this is exterior collaborations, it really does take at least two to tango, but good partners sometimes have bad days. Good partners are often under-resourced, and having a good partner doesn't guarantee success. But I can guarantee you one thing. If you have no partner, your probability of success is extremely low. So what does success look like? And these are metrics that we internally use. If we make a presentation, we want to have at least 25 attendees per an event and to avoid burnout. But to know whether or not this has resonance with an audience. If we get less than 25, we say, well, we didn't meet our goals. If we get more than 25, we say, well, okay, we did something right. And then if we create program media, we strive to have at least 500 unique views in an election cycle. In the 2022 ballot measures presentation, we reached more than 1,000 unique voters. With Missouri Voters Have a Superpower, we are closing in on 750 unique, that's hard copy and e-version views. I think we should be able to reach, before it's all over, at least between 1,000 and 1,500. Okay, another thing about what we learned is the visual message. We are working hard to be on more media. There's so much work to be done here, but so much media is for the desktop, but what we want to do is get on the phone and on the pad, be mobile, have less print and more images, and then respect the voters' time and eyesight. Okay, so let me talk about this a little bit. At City Market, we ended up moving from just having 8.5 by 11 flyers, but we put out some posters. And one of the things we noticed is that people walk by that table and they're about 6 feet away. So you need to have something that people can see 6 feet away. Okay. It's almost like, the doctor's eye test. And we actually found some of the posters have QR codes. People would stop and they get out their camera and they'd use the QR codes. So just this whole thing about, and again, we weren't taking up that much of the voters' time. And a lot of times they may not have had a conversation, but they saw it and they took pictures. And then the other thing is the whole eyesight thing. You have to be in big print. All right. And then measure. Let's talk about this. We actually were talking about this before the presentation started. It's very important to know when the voters are reading your materials, to know the time of the day and the time of the year. Remember how I started this presentation talking about, staring up into the ceiling in the middle of the night? We have a lot of people that look at our materials in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock. I'm just amazed. I guess people say, hey, I can't sleep. What can I do now? I'll go to the voter education page. The other thing is more than half of our video views came, I think it's between 24 hours and 36 hours of election days. I mean, it's just an amazing hockey stick. So there's opportunities with each half of that. On the back half, you have to say, boy, you better make sure you get the information right because that person is about to run into the voting booth. On the other half, you've got an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to plant some seeds here, and hopefully we can build an awareness level here that you couldn't do with the other half. Okay, another interesting thing, the same content on different channels gets better traction. Okay, the Kansas City Public Library video cast with the online presentation that went on YouTube, that has more than 600 views and it keeps growing. And in fact, when the election was over in 2022, I think there were about 425 views. And so since the election, that has gotten another 200 views. I don't know who those people are, but it continues to grow. But that is probably one of our most successful outlets, which is why that partnership is so important. Here's another one. This gets back into respecting the voters' times. Attention spans are universally short. YouTube, this is what YouTube says. This is not me. YouTube says a good video retains or loses half of the initial audience after 30 seconds. Okay, so you better make sure those first 30 seconds are good. And most of our videos have passed that test. It also motivates us to be concise. And then I mentioned that we love self-propagating media where we don't have to push it out there. That somehow or another is just kind of like out there growing like a weed. Okay, so let's talk about building an audience. It requires strong partners. We need to be able to read the audience. In 2022, we had mixed results with different library branches. And in effect, what happened was it was bring your own audience. And this year, we are making a concerted effort with the branches to build audiences in 2024, and each branch is doing their own thing. There's no guarantee of success, but at least we're being intentional about building the audience, and the library is demonstrating great partnership there too. Okay, so real quick on what we're working on. The library, the 2024 presentation that I mentioned, we actually are going to entitle it "Missouri Voters Have a Superpower." We're ripping that off from the graphic novel. Let me make a point here, and is in 2022, membership really came out. We made a big effort to try to get membership to come out to those events, and it was so important for a number of ways. When we went back to the library in 2024, we said, look, at the Plaza we had 65 people, at Central we had 40 people in attendance. We can build an audience, and that was and they noticed that, and we also said, hey, one of your most popular views is the online presentation. So all of those things were credibility enhancing. This is why membership, you as a member, you don't even have to be part of the Voter Education Committee. You can do great things by both attending our events and referring friends to our events and our website. Okay, the informed voting course materials at UMKC. This is actually born from the election administration study. Julie Adelson did some great work here. And then Marianne Weinkoop deserves a whole lot of credit here, because she has as a member of the UMKC community, she was able to get us into so many places. And what this thing is it's our first partnership with a post-secondary institution. And what we're trying to do here is build on this relationship and replicate it at other post-secondary institutions. And there's this thing called kinetics. And what kinetics is when you start moving around, all kinds of good things start to happen because you're moving around. That otherwise wouldn't happen. Well, in the process of working on this, we learned a lot from working with the students. So let me pull up what this looks like. This is on our website. But this is one of the students. She actually introduces our videos, but this was spec'd by a professor at UMKC who says, I need you to create materials that will inform students about registering to vote and voting. And we've, and as you can see, the fonts are big. We have, we try to make the ideas concise here. We included a video from Pat Garvey here on why I should vote. Talk about how to check your registration, how do you register to vote. Here we had 2 students talk about their experiences, and that is actually where we got some valuable information. And then this whole notion of your personal situation and how, where do you vote? Where do you register to vote? And then there's so many ways to vote in Missouri. But you can see all that. There was one other thing here, and this is why this informed voting actually will get back to the role of membership. Well, Missouri does not make it easy for students to vote. In fact, that was one of the pieces of feedback. Again, this is this whole issue of having a conversation. Information we got from a student when they viewed the materials, the person that was running the course, in order to get credit for this module, they had to respond to certain questions. This student was from Colorado, and he said something like, I am absolutely amazed at how difficult Missouri makes it for students to vote. Okay, that's not nonpartisanship. I'm just quoting them. And then I would say that there are people on the other side of the equation who actually will make the argument that voting should be hard to do. I don't agree with that. That is a point of view. But if you are a student, many times you are not at your permanent address, and then a lot of your voting materials will go to your permanent address. Well, who is watching the mail at the permanent address? It's usually a parent or a sibling. And this is where you as a member come in. If somebody says, hey, you know, well, how do I help my student? Well, you know, the fact that they are at home and seeing the student's mail coming to their permanent address is very important stuff. So they are an important target audience for us. Okay, online literacy. And Jim Calvert, I'm just amazed that I've forgotten to even talk to you about this, but this was something that came in when we were talking to the students. This is the intersection of the world of disinformation and misinformation and educating student voters. And we've been in a reading period on this for the last 6 months. And now what we're doing is we're working on materials that efficiently instruct voters, especially younger voters, on online literacy. And let me see if I have this on the site. So our goal is to provide voters with the skills that can help them navigate online media that may contain misinformation, disinformation, and bias. And a more confident and discerning reader can become a more informed voter. That is an issue that young voters have. Number one, they get most of their information from online media. Number two, they have not developed as let's say people of other generations, trusted sources of media, because we were given that. We grew up with, the only thing we had were 3 or 4 sources of media, and it's much more challenging in the 21st century. And then the consequence of that, and the consequence of not trusting media, is then this whole issue of becoming an informed voter becomes viewed as difficult and not exactly a confidence-inspiring event. So half of what we're trying to do is to give people confidence. Okay, so I'm going to close here. What do we need? As a member, I've talked about members that use and reform our voter education webpage, members of other committees that collaborate with us, and we would love to have you. We are looking for task-oriented voter education members interested in working with our team, and we're looking for people that believe in our principles, people that enjoy the give and take of working in teams. And, you know, I'm going to give just a whole lot of credit to every person that has ever worked on the Voter Education Committee. Everybody has just been great about, let's say, understanding and the whole need to have give and take. Nobody has ever just completely dug in. So hats off to everybody on that. Detective work is so important. So if you think you're a good detective, well, you know, join us, because we're looking for detectives with good bullshit meters and not necessarily always on. And then one last thing, an appreciation for the visual. We have had a number of people that have done great things for us on the visual. Anybody that has a graphic design background, if you know Adobe InDesign, I would love to talk to you, because that is a standard. Katie Frankenbach uses it, and Katie Frankenbach and I work on it together, and it makes our work so much easier. So in closing, thank you for taking the time to become an informed voter and member, and I can now answer questions. Jim.
I just want to give a quick little story that reiterates a lot of what Greg was talking about. When I was a teacher, there was a moment in Missouri's history where the Missouri's reputation as a puppy mill state was sort of challenged, and the industry in pushing back against that, I think it was an amendment or voter initiative petition or something. But in their effort to push back on it, they essentially wielded farmers. They said, you know, your cattle, this is going to affect you in the cattle industry. And that came up in my classroom. My juniors were aware that I would let them talk politics. And so I said, let's go read the actual initiative petition. And so we put it up on the screen, and we said, show me where it says anything about cows. Show me where it says anything about livestock. Show me even if it doesn't even say anything about cats. It's everything was canine, canine, canine. And it was, I was amazed at how many of those students who were very passionate against it had never read it. And so it's amazing what just simply putting the actual language in front of people can do for them.
No, that's absolutely right. And I'm glad you said that, Jim. Just giving the voter the information they need to make a decision. And a lot of times, if you just have the proponents saying, the opponents say, people see things very differently. Mary Ann, you're on mute. Oh, go ahead. Now you're on.
I just wanted to second Jim's very poignant report there, because that's really the whole reason that puppy mill thing was passed as legislation, and so the legislation was overridden the next year by the state legislature, and it's why we now go to proposed amendments to the Constitution, because those can't be overridden by the state legislature. So you've hit on the real reason for all of this discussion of the amendments on the Constitution that are on the ballot. So thank you.
Excellent point, Mary Ann. All right, let's see. Any other, let me see. I don't have complete visuals of any other hands that are up.
Although any hands that pop up will come up to the front of the top of the list.
Oh, okay.
There is a question in the chat from Kelly. Kelly, do you want to ask your question, or I can read it in the chat? I'll go ahead and read it.
It took me too long to find my mute button.
Sure.
The UMKC material, is that something that can be shared with other college age voters?
Yes. So let me share my screen again. I'll show you exactly where it is. I'm going to go. Here we go. You go to the voter education webpage, and it's this button here, resources for college students. And for some reason,
I'm
not seeing your screen.
not seeing your screen, Greg.
Oh, you're not. Oh, hold on.
There you
Okay,
go.
there you go. Okay, so if you go to the voter education page, go to the voter education library, here it is, resources for college students. You click on this and that will bring up the resources for college students, which is this. So that's what'll come up if you go to the voter education webpage.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I just put the link to the voter education page in the chat.
Okay, any other questions? I think that was such a thorough, non-controversial program that we've sort of don't have a ton of questions, but
okay, Carol Hunt's got her hand up.
Yep. Oh, she might have been trying to hit pause.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a question, Carol?
No, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I was trying to applaud Greg.
That might be the case.
Oh, here comes Julie Adolson.
Hi, I've got a loud chime behind me, so forgive me if you start hearing this, Big Ben sound. I want to look at and ask a question about the other end of the spectrum. And I'm an ombudsman, which is a resident advocate in a long-term care facility. And we got a little handout, which kind of it's 4 pages of how to register and vote in Missouri. It's pretty daunting. And we've been given, as a volunteer ombudsman, I've been given like a direction of how I'm not supposed to appear as if I'm soliciting. I don't even know how they define the word soliciting, but they're very reluctant to allow the ombudsman volunteers to actually help somebody check their registration online and even help them like change their address and that kind of thing. And so I'm wondering, my question is not just to you, Greg, but maybe Anne or the body at large here, that what do we do as a League of Women Voters to help residents in skilled nursing facilities and assisted living facilities to make sure they're registered and help them registered if they're not? Thank you.
So I can take that, Greg, if you want me to.
Go ahead.
So they're probably, that facility is they probably heard something about the legislation that passed last year, 2 years ago, SB 1878. And so they're probably worried that you will get in trouble for solicitation. So the best thing in that specific case would be to pull up an article on your phone about the lawsuit and the fact that that part of that legislation, that there's a stay on that. And so it is perfectly legal for you to assist. They did not just define solicitation well, and that's part of the lawsuit. But we are absolutely allowed to solicit any voters and assist voters. So that's the first step I would take with that group.
And it's not coming from any particular facility. This is actually the state ombudsman office, which is part of the adult and aging and adult services in Jefferson City. So it's a state. There are public employees that run that office, and then they have regions all over the state of Missouri that have full-time employees. One is at the Mid-America Regional Council, of which they then coordinate volunteers like me. So it's been a struggle because I have to sign a lot of paperwork that I don't have a conflict of interest. And that really is more towards my visitations and cases that I open, investigations that I do. And I'm sorry to kind of get in the weeds here, but I'm also a volunteer for Kansas City Hospice, and that caused them to have to go all the way up to the state ombudsman office to make sure that none of the residents in the home that I volunteer at are in hospice under Kansas City Hospice, because it could make it look like I'm providing unfair, like additional services as an ombudsman, which I'm just a resident advocate for every resident if that resident is also in hospice care. So I feel like they're getting nervous because I'm a League of Women Voters and I'm an election worker, by the way. So I'm kind of coming at it from that standpoint, that I am very versed in HB 1878 and how to help voters vote, because I do it in every election for 15 hours. And so that's where I'm kind of running into an issue here, is that my volunteer coordinator, the full-time employee at MARC who oversees the volunteer program in Kansas City, is saying, you can't really, all you can do is provide a resident with voter education based on the 4-page handout, which is, basically a reading of 1878. And residents are needing a lot of additional help, and the facility people are certainly very busy with their jobs of caring for the residents. And frankly, they said, well, tell the resident to contact the election authority, which in my case is Cass County. And I'm like, they're pretty busy. And I did ask Cass County election authority how they help people vote. And he said, we go to the skilled nursing facilities and help them, cast their ballots. We bring ballots with us, and we actually help them vote there. That's what he said, but it never dawned on me to ask them, how do you help people register? And on the handout, it says, go to the DMV and get a driver license or a non-driver license at the DMV. And I'm like, these people are in a skilled nursing facility for a reason, right? They don't generally leave the skilled nursing facility and they can't drive. And yeah,
So
you
I'm
know, it's
gonna,
like,
yep, so this sort of crosses over into advocacy a little bit, and
Yeah.
lots of our committees do cross over. So we could talk more offline in the weeds, but my advice would actually still be the same, that we start with demonstrate where we are in the lawsuit and what the law currently is, and
Okay.
even better that it's at a higher level, because then if we can affect change at that level, then we can actually impact more voters that way. Because if we can manage to get that the people at the top to understand the law and where it is at the moment, and persist, because there is an effort to make voting more difficult, and our effort is to make voting easier. And so we will continue to run up against these challenges over and over and over again. So I encourage you to persist politely. Don't assume anybody knows the rules, because they probably don't, even if they're in the state, even if they're in Jefferson City. I'm not sure that they talk to each other. And we could, sometimes we use that to our advantage, that not everybody's on the, I mean, they're human beings in Jefferson City. So in advance of the passing of actually after that law passed, you might remember that we collected the forms that everybody had to do, and we delivered them directly to Jefferson City and plopped them on the desk, because we knew that there was an administrator that was going to now have to enter all of those forms, and that enthusiasm for that law might wane in the office where the people who make those laws work. And that hasn't been a part of the lawsuit that they've really defended hard. So fingers crossed that it worked. So persist. Keep giving them the information that's accurate. You guys have that information in the Voter Ed Committee. And then appeal to me, and I could step in, because as president, I got that label behind my name. So sometimes that makes it better. Sometimes it makes it worse. But we got two hands up, so I think we'll go to Stacy and then Reva. Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, and my comment is actually to Julie, and rather than it being about voting, maybe you make that about technology, and you enlist young volunteers from colleges or even high schools to do some technology education in that facility, or in all facilities, as many as you can get in. And maybe they have 2 or 3 topics, and one of them be how to get registered to vote. So it's not coming from a voting or political source, it's about technology.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. Reva?
Reva, you're on mute.
Yeah. Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I went in on election day to do that, Julie, to go in and help people vote. I guess I asking you, Julie, is it because they know you're a election person, and because they know that you are a league person, that this is a concern for them?
Well, it might be. It's just that, we get newsletters from the state, and then it funnels through our regional coordinator. And there was a little paragraph back in early June that said, hey, elections are coming up, and here's a handout. And we just want to be very careful that all you do is give a resident information if they ask for it. We don't want to be seen as soliciting and telling a resident you should vote. And I'm saying, well, in some ways, if you take this, their sort of mantra far enough, it's like they're interfering with people's right to vote.
Well,
You know,
they
and-
are. I guess that's my question, is that you're helping them do something that they want to do. So I
Right.
guess as an ombudsman, that's what you're supposed to do. So I don't quite understand the argument. And you're right. They're making it harder for these people to vote, and they have a right to vote. And if they say to you, I don't know, can you help me because I don't know how to do all this stuff, you should be able to do that without any problem. So I think, I mean, that would be my response too, is like, well, why can't I do this? Can you give me a good reason why I can't do
Right.
this?
Yep. And so I have that very kind of question with a really long email to my coordinator,
Okay.
and he's running it up the flagpole right now. But since so timely, we have this meeting today, I really wanted to get, you know, all of your ideas and thoughts. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other questions? Okay. Again, I want to thank Greg so much for sharing what you're doing. Our meetings usually last about an hour and a half, and since we've got a little bit of extra time, I do have some announcements, but I'm going to spring an activity on you since we have a little bit of extra time. Because in one of the announcements I'll be making is that we're seeking some leaders in our organization, including a leader who can take on the work of organizing the monthly meetings. This meeting was organized by the vice presidents, and that's, you know, they have other work to do. So we need to find somebody who can organize these monthly meetings. And one of the tasks that the coordinator for the monthly meetings does is come up with topics. And so here's the activity for today. I would like each of you to please think of a topic. What would you like to learn about from your League of Women Voters in your monthly meeting? These meetings are often hybrid, so sometimes we're in person. So you can keep that in mind. We can bring in guest speakers from outside the league, but if I can hand a list of topics to the incoming coordinator for these meetings, that would make their job a whole lot easier. So who's got a suggestion? Jim.
So weird to hear you call me that.
I know. Yeah, I'm going to do that again. Jimmy. So for those of you who are new, this is my brother, and I call him Jimmy. And so you all are supposed to call him Jim, but I get to call him Jimmy.
But I have two ex-wives, so believe me, whatever you call me, I've been called worse. So I just, one of the other hats that Greg wears is something that I think that as we get closer to the election, that we took a position, which I think the state is either adopted or is in the process of adopting, on protecting the polls from voter intimidation. And as we get close to the election, I would like to see maybe a program on that, because I think that in light of some public comments that certain officials have made about, you know, the revolution being bloodless if certain people let it be bloodless and whatnot, I think that's kind of a call to arms that is a little frightening, quite frankly, for our democracy. And there are protections that have been put into place by the state of Missouri. And so I would like to see maybe a program that supports that.
Great. Okay, Reva?
Just real quick on what Jim just said, he just said it at the end, because I don't really know what the laws are in this state for that. You know, what are the laws? I know there's that 25-foot thing, but we need to know what those laws are. That would help us, you know, just even telling other people if they get confronted at, you know, a poll.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. Pat?
I know in the past, at the end of the legislative session, we've asked representatives from both major political parties to come in and just do a recap of what occurred during the Missouri General Assembly session.
Okay. End of legislative session recap. Great. Thank you. Kelly?
I think it would be valid to repeat topics from the past. We have a lot of new members, and I know I've slept since we've discussed some things, and I have some memories of talking about doing testimonials online for bills or something, and that was all completely new information for me at the time, and I wouldn't mind a refresher on that, and refreshers on and probably any number of things that have been presented in the past would be worthwhile. Like I said, I forget stuff, and we have new members, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Elizabeth?
I'll tag on what Kelly said, that information from the past, but also Greg's presentation was really concise and informative, and I'm speaking as a member of his committee, so take that as it may. But have people from the other committees come and talk about exactly what it is they do and how they do it and what the effects are. Two other suggestions, one tagging on a previous suggestion. If we could have someone from the boards of elections, not just KC, but some of the other ones, come and talk to us about the nitty-gritty of how elections happen, what the protections are from the things that we hear about, how to make sure your vote is safe from the horse's mouth, as it were. And my third suggestion for those of us of a certain age would be a presentation about the use of technology, solely aimed at people who are not comfortable with technology. Hands-on, this is your cell phone, this is how you get on it, this is how you can use it, this is where those things are coming from that are so freaking annoying, and this is how you can get them to stop, and all the other things I don't know anything about. But those are my three suggestions. And I'm gonna run, sorry.
Those are excellent suggestions. All right. Who else? Because that was 4 out of 31 people. So Donna. Excellent.
I think that we do a service to our members and to the community when we maybe have speakers that explained the pro and con on issues like that are going to be on the ballot. And I know our program that we present at the libraries is excellent, but further past, sometimes we've had speakers that like on the sales tax to support research for pediatric research. We had a program where we had pros and cons on that issue. So something that would be of interest to our members and to others.
Okay, that's a great idea. Okay, that's 5. I'm gonna let everybody off the hook once I've had 10. Who else has an idea? Alice?
Hi, this is a little bit self-serving as being a new person, but and I'm trying to understand how the League of Women Voters for Kansas City coordinates and how it associates with the Missouri League and also the National League and how they all work together and what they're working on.
Right. And actually, I'm going to add that there was one in the comments that about sharing a suggestion from Janice that we share the best workshops from the National Convention with membership. Yeah, a particular one to recommend. And so that would be a great, those two topics sort of together, that would work really well. So have national and state, sorry, I could, it is recorded. I could do this later, but national and state and local work. Okay, Cindy.
Yes, in Greg's presentation, you mentioned that the efforts with UMKC and Marianne's connection, helping get that going, among others. I don't know if it's too soon for us to ask UMKC folks, students, to come and tell us about what their activities are, what their needs are, how we can help, that sort of thing.
Okay. It may be too soon, but these ideas are for the next year or 2 or 3. So the idea is not too soon for sure. Okay. So maybe invite UMKC students to come and maybe do a panel or something similar. Evelyn.
Well, hi. Well, Cindy, thank you very much for the idea because that's what I had. But I would like to expand on it just a little bit and make sure we include a panelist from a community college and consider a student from Kansas as well as Missouri. So, but thank you, Cindy. Your core idea is what I had in mind. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question though, Evelyn. Why do you suggest Kansas?
Well, it's true. We don't
generally cross the state line, but
it depends upon whether we anticipate a public audience. So, I probably misspoken by including Kansas, but if it were a public event, we would want to include Kansas. But I understand for our membership, Missouri is sufficient. Yes.
Or that might be, an effort that we engage in with the Johnson County League of Women Voters as well. So,
well, that's true, but at least consider the community colleges as well as the universities.
Absolutely. I in fact crossed out UMKC and changed it to college. Yeah, excellent. Okay, then we also have one in the chat that is taxes. Where does our money go? Yep, that's exactly what it says. That's so succinct. Thank you. Where does our money go? And then Donna.
Update on litigations.
Oh, yep.
As the league is involved in state.
We are involved in lots of litigations, and that speaks directly to what Julie was talking about as well. Okay. On litigations. Okay, last call. You guys have done a great job. I've run out of room on my paper. So excellent work. This will make it easier for us to recruit a new coordinator for these meetings. Cindy?
Anne, am I remembering correctly that you are going to send out a member survey with just this question?
We are planning to send out a member survey. Yeah. So you may see this again in the e-voter that comes out a week from Tuesday. You may see the survey. Feel free to fill it out again. Actually, I encourage you to fill it out again because then it gets dropped into a spreadsheet and it's there for all of history of the future. Not history, that's backwards. It's all there forever. And so we'll ask again, but I thought this would be, I wanted to ask you guys because you guys are at the meeting. So you're probably the most likely to come to future meetings. All right, so I'm going to take just a few minutes now. I've got a whole lot of announcements to make, and I see that there's already some information in the chat. So when I make an announcement, if it has something to do with you, please feel free to put additional information or links in the chat. And so I want to encourage all of you out there to check the chat, follow the links, and do what we're asking you to do. So the first announcement is that Becky Yockey asks everybody to, particularly voter service volunteers, and so these would be people who have had training and are ready to go out and interact with the public, to please check the volunteer opportunities on the website regularly. The voter registration requests are pouring in. That's requests from other organizations for us to come and do voter registration. And we're hoping to help as many groups as possible. We do say no if we don't have enough volunteers. So it is important to step up and volunteer. Special thanks to those who've been helping so far. We had 8. Oh my gosh, it's only the 13th. We've had 8 voter registration events so far in July. It's only the 13th. That's a lot of voter registration events. So please jump in if you can. Karine Page asks that you please look for GOTV opportunities on the volunteer opportunity page as well. Yes, so we don't have as many posted there yet because Get Out the Vote is most effective 0 to 4 weeks before each election. And so 0 to 4 weeks before the August election, we'll be doing some Get Out the Vote efforts. And then 0 to 4 weeks before the November election, there'll be a lot of Get Out the Vote, like a real push. So please be looking at the the volunteer opportunities page regularly. Because there are lots of volunteer needs there as well. And I also want to mention that there was a work party yesterday at the borough for the Get Out the Vote team. And that was really fun. Everybody worked for an hour and a half. You showed up with a computer if you had one. If not, you could make buttons or highlight voter registration cards, but we got a ton of work done and then also got to have lunch together. So it was really fun. I encourage you to come to one of those in the future. And you get to come if you're brand new and you haven't done the training because it's not a public facing thing. Forums committee, the first forum of the season for the Jackson County prosecutor was a huge success. There were 49 people who attended in person, not in person, but in time at the webinar, who attended the webinar. And then so far we've had 63 views on the YouTube recording. And in addition, there were 2,000 places where it was exposed to other people on social media. So that's a lot of traction. Shout out to Cheryl Barnes, who stepped in for me and talked about the forums on KSHB TV on Wednesday. That clip ran, her full interview, the clip ran at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning. And I don't know, I only watched it on record because I don't stay up that late anymore. So I did not watch it live. But then it ran again in another story that evening. They played an additional clip in another story about voting that was aired that evening at, I believe, 5 o'clock. And so please, you could take a look at that on the KSHB TV website. And we got some really great exposure. We got a lot of information out to voters. They did a really great job on that story. There was the story that was specifically about the forums, and then that evening there was a story about Vote 411 and the voter guide being released and how the website works. And we got just like a lot of information out there. And I see Marianne, do you have a question?
I just wanted to say, I was so surprised. I was watching the 5 o'clock evening news, and here was Cheryl and Ann and the forums and voter education. It was really a welcome surprise. And I thought I meant to send you an email and say, congratulations on getting that together and getting it going, because that was really, really good.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I thought the reporter did an excellent job. She was really invested, and just a little anecdote, the reporter's very young. The camera woman was also very young and had just moved to Kansas City and was very sad because she can't vote in the August election. She just moved to Missouri because she doesn't have her voter ID lined up yet. And the voter registration deadline was the day before, and she just couldn't get it together to get a Missouri or federal issued voter ID to vote in the August election. She'll have to wait until November. So our work matters. Our fighting against these onerous laws, it matters. It affects real people. And there's somebody who doesn't get to vote in the primary. Riva?
Thursday, we did a registration at the Nelson for a new citizens ceremony. And while we were waiting during the ceremony for the people to come out, there were 2 young women who were working there. And they both came over and we talked to them, and they took a lot of our material. They're going to post it on Facebook. They're going to, they were really surprised about 411 when we told them, you know, you could go there and find this information. They were going, wow, this is great. So these two young women, you know, we kind of informed them. They're going to take some things and put up in the bulletin board in the back for the staff. They're we told them, put them on social media, tell your friends. So just two women, you know, they're probably going to reach out to, she said, well, we have 600 volunteers here. So, you know, I think that, like you said, one little conversation we had with these two young girls, who knows who we're reaching with that information.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so back to forums. There are 3 forums coming up this week, not this week, the next week, because this week's over. So there are 3 forums coming up next week, and then 2 the week after that. Please spread the word to friends and family. The links to sign up can be found, so somebody type this in for me, please, at lwvkc.org/CCIC. Oh, nope, I'm going to take that away. I went to look and not all the links are there. So I'm going to give you a different URL. Oh, the links to the videos are there. So I will finish that URL. Sorry. It's lwvkc.org/CCIC. And Anitra, can you remind me? It's Consolidated Candidate. I don't know what the I stands for. Information?
Issues.
Issues. Thank you. Calendar. So that's a calendar that Forums has produced that collects information about forums that are going on in organizations other than ours, because I don't know if anybody watched Miracle on 34th Street, where the kid wants the toy that they don't have at the department store, and they send the kid to the other department store, and then that becomes this huge benefit to everybody, and everybody buys more toys. That's us. We're Gimbals. We're sending the kids over to Macy's. So if we don't have it, we're sending them away. So, and that's part of that effort, is that we have that community consolidated. Say it for me, Anitra. Consolidated candidate
and issues calendar.
Thank you. And they are also accepting questions for the forums. That's something that they really need, or some good juicy questions to ask the candidates. And so if you have questions to submit, please send those to http://tinyurl.com/LWVKC forum questions. So I'm guessing.
And that information can also be found on our website, the league's website.
Yes.
Where to send the questions.
So I didn't see it at that link, the earlier link that we put in. I didn't see
We'll
it there.
double check.
Okay. All right. So I said something about that. Please save the date and plan to attend or help run, volunteer for Peace, Love, Vote, our 2nd annual fundraiser. It will be happening on September 11th from 6 to 8. We will have food, drinks, both potent and tame, trivia and fun. There will be raffle prizes as well. So please go ahead and get signed up for that. The tickets are already on sale. They're on the website, so you can register now. I see Pat's got her hand up. Pat, do you have a question?
Well, no, I just wanted to go back to the link to the form for submitting questions. That link is on the homepage, so it's on the left side of the homepage, right at the top. So it's an easy way to get to that form.
Excellent. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, so the link is on the homepage. I'm guessing the link to everything forum related is on the homepage too, right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Oh, and then we do need leaders, as I mentioned earlier. We need a couple of leaders for some teams and some committee. We are looking for, no committee. One committee. We're looking for somebody to take the voter protection effort that we do, somebody to take the lead on that. And that involves, Donna, it's once every 2 years that we do that. or do we do it every
Yeah.
year?
Yes, I call it poll monitoring, and we work with the community to monitor our elections, to answer questions, and it's a fun thing, and there's training.
Yeah, so it's actually coordinating volunteers who will show up at the polls in person, and they have a phone number and extra information available. And so if a voter runs into a problem at the polls, if there's any kind of voter intimidation, or if a disabled voter, for example, doesn't get the services that they need, then we intervene and are there as a resource and can direct people to. There are attorneys on call, and so we can direct people to get the services and the help that they need. And so it's just coordinating those volunteers, and it's working in conjunction with some leaders of the NAACP and the A. Philip Randolph Institute. And so we're looking for that leader. We're also looking for a chair for the Observer Corps Committee, and that's a committee that's well set up and running. And so it's not one where you have to figure out how to run the committee. It's one that's already up and running. And then we're also looking for, as I said before, somebody to help coordinate, or somebody to take on the lead coordinating the monthly meetings. So if you've got any interest in any of those, please let me know and I will get you pointed in the right direction. And then the last thing I want to say before I let you go is I want to thank everyone for all the work that you do. As we move into the heart of the election season and we start to see an increase in the rancor and uncertainty of the political state of our country as that grows, I just totally messed up my written speech. So I'm going to go back. As we move into the heart of the election season and the rancor and uncertainty of the political state of our country grows even more scary, and we are all full of anxious energy, I urge you to put that energy into getting out the vote, or educating voters, or countering mis and disinformation online, or any of the other things that we engage in as an organization. It can be easy to get angry with those around us when tensions are so high. So I want you all to please remember that we are all on the same team. We are all Americans. And let's offer one another grace, patience, and kindness, especially those who are working to preserve democracy. So thank you for all that each and every one of you does for the League, on behalf of the League, to empower voters and to defend democracy. So thank you so much on this hot Saturday morning for coming and being with us here. And yeah. Donna, that was my Donna. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, though. I'm sure you wanted to remind people of the DEI training on the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Donna. Yes, there is a DEI training on the 17th. Thank you. So that's on the website. Thank you very much. All right, so thank you, and I will see you all next time. All right, bye-bye. Thank you.